Hello, this is Gran Turismo 5 running in the emulator RPCS3 in Windows. I've been just trying to play the game, basically, after I ripped it off my jailbroken PS3, but I ran into some graphical issues. There's currently 3 graphical issues with the game I know about that you can actually either outright solve or work around, at least with certain settings in the emulator. So I'm going to go over those now. So this first issue is a graphical glitch that occurs if you're running the game in 1080p, and this issue is actually linked from the wiki entry for Gran Turismo 5, the RPCS3 wiki entry, that is, for Gran Turismo 5. So you can't see it here. You see it in the background, particularly, and it might vary a little by graphic card, but on my graphic card, which is an Nvidia laptop card from 5 or 6 years ago, like a mid-range gaming PC, I don't know what it is, I forget. It shows up mostly in the lower right-hand corner. It doesn't show up in this scene. It only shows up in certain scenes in the background of the main menu. And so it's a pretty minor issue, really. And you can jump to the next scene by going into options or GT mode and then leaving and coming back to the main menu. So now it'll load a different scene. This scene does not have the issue either. I've only found, I think, about 5 scenes that'll show the problem. This is one of them. You can see it in a minor way. If you keep an eye on the sort of lower right hand area of the screen, you will occasionally see lighter squares, tiny, small little squares. I don't know, maybe they're like a dozen pixels square lane per side, and they are obstinately not happening right now. I did clear my cache, which should have made the problem readily apparent, but it's not doing it. Come on. Alright, let's try a different scene. So far I failed. Maybe the problem fixed itself. I didn't download a new... Okay, this scene does not get it, I don't think. No, don't do that. Okay, this is the main scene where I usually see it. There it is. See that grid of lighter squares? Yeah. It just flickers like that. And this is basically the worst that it gets, at least on my rig. And again, it's only as far as I've seen in these main menu background scenes in some of them. So, you say, what's the workaround? Well, you don't say that, I say that. Well, it's fairly simple. Let's get out of here. Okay, back in Gran Turismo 5, we're going to go to our configuration, and under GPU, there's an option called strict rendering mode. Now, I know what you're saying, but strict rendering mode makes the emulator run worse. Well, don't worry, we're not going to stay in strict rendering mode, but you do have to run through it once, at least. Well, once, and then that's you might have to do it again sometime, in the far future. So yeah, enable strict rendering mode, save custom config. Let me just make sure I got that in there right. Okay, and then we're going to launch the game. So what the graphics programmer of RPCS3 has explained to me, that's KD11, is that strict rendering mode is kind of the actual, like, real rendering code for the PS3 or for the emulator or whatever. And disabling strict rendering mode is kind of saying, okay, well, we're going to enable a bunch of shortcuts to make the emulator run faster, but it has to cut some corners when it does that, so strange little minor glitches may occur. So if you ever see strange minor glitches, you can try enabling strict rendering mode, and if strict rendering mode solves the problem, then chances are the people making the emulator are probably going to say, well, that's because that's what strict rendering mode's for, so just use that. I'm not sure how much of a performance hit you actually get with strict rendering mode. I was trying to run like a race with it yesterday, and even just trying to load up cars was a little jerky and annoying, so I just quit. But anyway, we're in strict rendering mode at the moment because what you have to do for this workaround is get those scenes to play again in strict rendering mode. Okay, none of these are applicable. As I said, there's 5 scenes where I've seen the problem, although one of them wasn't doing it earlier. Okay, this one. So that's 1 out of 5. You just have to see it for a few seconds and let it compile whatever shaders it does at the start, I think. As far as I've seen. This one is not. No, oh dear. Well, that was some extra compiling we're doing now, but whatever. Get out. That's an option you can turn on. Okay, here's a second scene, this sort of ruined building. That demonstration thing you can turn off here, and I think I've turned that off. It's a demo. So 2 scenes we've seen, and we can sort of check off our mental map. This scene does not have the problem ever. This scene does not have the problem. Not doing very well at navigating the menus here. This one does not have it. I mean, this is a whole lot of kind of boring because what I'm showing you is scenes that are not reproducing the problem because I'm in strict rendering mode, but the point is, this is just how you fix it so it won't ever show up. This is probably the second worst scene for the bug showing up. It gets those bright lighter squares in the lower right corner, and especially when it's showing the earthen walls here. So that's 3 down. We got some smooth background music at least. Come on, compile in. Okay, this is another scene. Actually, this is probably the second worst. This actually shows fairly large grids of the brighter squares in the lower right if you aren't in strict rendering mode. So we're basically like caching this in, caching the shaders or something, I don't know, but whatever. It means that once we've seen that for a few seconds, it does whatever it does and writes out whatever it does in a way that when we run the game again without strict rendering mode turned on, it will still be able to render that scene without the glitch. Actually, did KB11 ever tell me, like, did he use scientific language for... He said the blinking dots thing is well known by now. He didn't explain it here. Oh yeah, he did. Without strict mode, frame buffer loops appear. That's just how the game works on PS3, but PCs don't like that. This is one of the main reasons we have strict mode option in the first place. I did try it with the anti-aliasing options he suggested. That didn't actually make a difference. So he said it's frame buffer loops, whatever that means. Okay, now we've seen what? 4 of them? 4 of the scenes in which I've seen this problem occur. Yeah, this is the other one, the streetcar European city one. So that should do it. Let me just double check. I have screenshots so you can see that grid pattern here in this one, the screenshot. This one was very minor, but there are the lighter squares there. There's the grid pattern there. There's a little of it here. And here it is down here. Actually, so I guess it was second worst in this current one. So that's the only ones where I've seen it. So now we have all loaded those in the strict rendering mode. So now we can exit. And again, well, this is from the original bug entry. This was an old bug entry that got closed for inactivity when KD11 came in like a year ago and asked for people to retest it because he said a lot of stuff had changed and nobody responded. So he just closed it. And again, that issue, I think I mentioned this, that issue is linked from the official wiki, RPCS3 Wiki article on Gran Turismo 5, which is how I found out about it in the first place. So nobody had retested it. The issue had gotten closed, so I thought, well, I've seen it since I've been running GT5 in the last day, so I better, you know, open a fresh bug and say, well, it does still happen. And, you know, he asked for testing, or KD11 asked for testing. So I did that and gave my findings, and I guess he was satisfied with that, aside from it suggesting maybe the anti-aliasing thing would help, but I gave him information that it didn't. Anyway, so that bug is basically, he said, you know, well, you just have to use strict rendering mode if you want to get rid of it. I don't think he knew that you would only have to run strict rendering mode once, though, so that's handy to know. So now I can turn strict rendering mode off and save that. Double check because I'm paranoid that I can't do anything right the first time. Okay. So run again. Go through the rather lengthy startup bit. And we'll see what happens. Again, like so the original bug entry said this only happened at 1080p base resolution, or what does it call it? But default resolution 1080p, but that's kind of the game's ideal resolution, so that's kind of what you want to run it in. But supposedly, according to the original bug entry, if you run it at like 720p, it won't happen. But who wants to run at 720p? Not me. Anyway, that would potentially be another workaround. I haven't tested it. I mean, I haven't tested running at 720p. But anyway, this workaround seems to work in 1080p. So now, strict rendering mode is off. Normally, we would start to see the white squares again when one of those 5 background scenes came up. It's not this one. This one. Frame buffer loops or whatever. Don't loop your frame buffers. This one would at least sometimes show it in a minor way. Not seeing it here. There's a big number 35 painted on the wall in graffiti in that scene. I wonder what was that 35 what? This is an 86 car, so was it 35 years since that car was released, or at least it says 86 on the front of the car. Anyway, it's not being seen here. But I didn't see it there when we just ran this earlier, so I don't know. Let's find a scene where it always was showing up. Without strict rendering mode. This one was always the worst. So do we have the white squares? Not so far. And remember, oh no, they're there. Well, I'm full of garbage. Now it's stopped though, so it's still going. Well, my workaround didn't work great. Nope. Alright, well, I guess in that case, the actual workaround is to run it in strict rendering mode. I don't think too much of that workaround, so I'm not going to do that. The other problem with this supposed workaround I thought I had, which would let you disable strict rendering mode and still get the benefits of strict rendering mode. The problem is, if you cleared your cache, or your cache for the game in the emulator, or sometimes the cache can have to refresh itself if there's certain graphic pipeline updates or whatever, then it would have started occurring again. You would have had to run with strict rendering mode. So in a way, it's nice not to know I have to worry about that. Anyway, yeah, so apparently if you don't want those little flickering squares ever in the backgrounds here, and you still want to run at 1080p, then you will have to run in strict rendering mode. So I don't know, that's unfortunate. I'm not going to do that. So that's not a great success for a workaround, but okay, I have some that are better, I promise, at least I think. Let's see, the next one, okay. Yeah, actually the next one is more successful. So the game, when you first install the game on a PS3, or even when you first load it in RPCS3, it will ask if you want to do a data install. The game will ask if you want to do install from the disk, you know, the original Blu-ray. Of course, in the emulator, the data is just on your hard drive anyway. And it says something about it'll take 8 gigabytes. Let's see. So I've run I didn't do that initial install, but I did come in here later and tried the install from here. You can just do it with this option right here, pre-install main game data. So I did that, and it'll tell you, it'll check and see how much space these files are taking, and it's something like 5 gigabytes. I suppose I could look on my hard drive also. Again, this is the emulator, so I didn't do it at first because I thought, well, the data, you know, for the emulated Blu-ray disc is already on my hard drive, taking up close to 20 gigabytes. So why would I just have it copy that to another emulated file on my hard drive and, you know, duplicate itself? That wouldn't make any difference, right? It's all on the same drive. That's why I didn't do it initially, so it's taking up 5.4 gigabytes. But I was getting some pretty gross, like, warping and stuttering at the start of a race, of races, especially when I went to a track I hadn't run before. So I thought, well, let me try doing that install, and it actually does make a difference, and I'll show you that difference. The other part of this is that by default, this box is checked, or no, this box is not checked. Stop installation. What it says at the bottom is that this will sort of install, do a slow version of the data install in the background when the game isn't doing anything else or something, I guess. It just sort of trickle installs. And I didn't want to doing that either, so I had checked the box originally to make it not do that. Anyway, but I have all the data installed now. And I'm going to delete it, because I want to show you what the problem actually looks like. It actually doesn't take that long. We're running from a modern-ish solid-state hard drive, so it's pretty quick. And by pretty quick, I meant it doesn't take forever. It's taking longer than I thought it would, though. Maybe this is another demonstration that's borked. Come on, emulator. I kind of like that little activity animation. It looks so zippy. Boy, I could swear it didn't take this long the last time I checked this. Well, that's annoying. I mean, all it's got to do is leave 5 gigabytes off my hard drive. Of course, it thinks it's the PS3's hard drive. Maybe it broke. You could, of course, just quit the emulator and delete whatever cache file RPCS3 has created. Okay, so let's see the size now. It's not going to take much time at all because there's nothing there. 8 kilobytes. Why couldn't it delete that? I don't know. Maybe it rewrote it and just says that 8 kilobytes says, hey, there's nothing here. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So that data install is basically not there anymore. See, it is installing now. It's trickle installing. I don't really want it to do that, so let's hurry on to arcade mode and see what running a race looks like. Single race. Go to one of my favorite tracks, probably my favorite track actually, which is London. Let's do the old Skyline. Kazunori loves his Skylines, and they're smooth driving cars in his game, so it's a good test car. So this is without the data install, having just deleted the data I had installed. Still doing a trickle install, but let's see what happens when the emulator tries to pump this thing out. And I hadn't even run this track in the emulator since I deleted my emulator caches separately, so the emulator doesn't know anything about this track. That actually wasn't so bad. Okay, well, sometimes you can see, like, when you toggle on the interior view like I did, you can actually see, like, parts load in because it's so chunky and stuttery while it's trying to load and cache everything. This actually wasn't that bad, which means my demonstration here isn't that impressive. But you can see that it's pretty... There was some pretty harsh chunking there as it was doing that sort of drive into the race type of scene. And then that initial half block or so was pretty messed up. Now, once you've run a loop or two of the track, it will have compiled some shaders. As you can see, it's telling me it's doing in the lower left pretty much throughout that whole first loop. So there's the first loop. I'm just going to do the full 2 loops here, and that's usually sufficient. That's just my bad driving. Don't blame that on the caching. 2 loops to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop is usually enough to get most of the emulators shader compilation done. Oh my gosh, I'm just driving like trash. It's not even the stuttering from the compiling shaders. Uh-oh, more garbage driving. I'm not paying attention. Or, well, I'm not a very good driver, let's face it. I don't even have a car in real life anymore. That probably doesn't help. I don't know how real is Gran Turismo 5 really, but I also haven't been playing GT5. I just sort of reacquired it. That's another excuse. I'll just keep making them. Okay, so that was without the data install and having not run the track before. Now, if we go out and we launch that again, you'll see there's a slight difference, actually a fairly significant difference, when RPCS3 has previously had a chance to load the track like we just did before. So it'll be a little smoother. We probably won't get super jerky teleport juddery warping stuff going on at the start. But it should still be kind of... Actually, that wasn't bad at all. Maybe I am full of stuff. It is a little stuttery here. Okay, I know what we're going to have to do then. We're going to have to exit out the whole emulator, and run it again. I could just quit from any screen, of course. I'm just kind of paranoid that, I don't know, that makes it harder. On the emulator, I have no idea. So, it is trickle installing, but that should be fairly insignificant. Oh, I can't access the pause screen if I actually pause the emulator. Alright. So it has done some caching, but the full data, and it's done a tiny bit of trickle install, but the data install is not there. Again, you would think that was all just duplicating data on the disk, but it seemed to make a difference to me before. I think the reason why it was so smooth that second time we ran that race is because it was the second time. But let's see what happens when we run now without the data install and running the race for the first time in this restart of the game. And what I think should be the case, if it's like it was before for me, when I was doing this without having done the full data install, is that it'll be a bit chunky. It won't be smooth like it was that second time we ran it, because RPCS3 will redo some caching. That's the prediction. Let's see if that is in fact the case. And if there is some stuttering and warping, we'll see how bad it is. And then we'll have that to compare with. Oh, see now here, this is the requester you get when you haven't done the data install. No, don't do that. We'll do that later. Okay. Okay, here we go. What's it gonna do? How bad is it gonna be? Well, dang, not bad at all. Okay, well, I may be just full of stuff then. Let's try something else. Let's do another. Wow, none of my... Maybe part of this was due to the bug that was also ongoing in this when I was first running the game last week, where there was an actual bug with anti-aliasing. Let's try another track for the first time in this caching installation regime. Let's do Rome. Okay, we're going to be coming up on the Coliseum. I've seen this before be real jerky and weird. Now it's fine. Wow. Well, I'm just being put to the torch here. A little jerky there, but not too bad. It is Still pretty jerky. It's solidly compiling shaders here in this first half of the first lap. That was just me being a bad driver. Still compiling shaders. Well, I guess some other performance thing, maybe it was the bug fix for the Nvidia anti-aliasing problem from last week. Something did improve the performance aside from the data install, or even without the data install. The guy can't corner. So anyway, the whole first lap there was compiling shaders, which isn't ideal. Just about wrapped it up there. So that was about the first lap of compiling shaders. So anyway, I guess that's about as bad as it's going to get now, which is pretty good compared to what I was seeing last week. But let's see if we can at least make it a little better. So I'll go do the data install. It shouldn't take too long. And again, you can just do that by going into options and do the pre-install. 50 minutes? Oh, come on, it's not going to take that long. Ten seconds remaining. I like the sound of that. Oh, 12. 15 minutes. SSDs are awesome. Oh, whoops. Oh, come on, it's not going to take 20 minutes. 40 minutes. Come on, RPCS3, you can do this. Nope. 10 minutes, okay, 7, 5, 4, that's good, 3, 2. That's better than 50. There is another rendering bug currently that another user reported, in which the other cars on the track, the CPU cars, don't get shaded when they drive into a shadow that's crossing the track, like from a building or something. They just are still driving as if they're fully illuminated by the, simulated sunlight or whatever. It's actually not as noticeable as that sounds, but if you keep an eye out, you'll see it. KD11 has looked at it, and he said this is something that just cropped up recently, and he said it looks like it was due to another change that was made, and he's just gonna back that change up. But that bug entry was last updated 3 days ago, and the reversion of code that would supposedly get rid of this recent problem that cropped up has not occurred yet, so I'm not sure how long that might take to get fixed. It wasn't something that I noticed. I keep getting kind of tempted to go back to the build from last week that had the broken anti-aliasing on Nvidia cards, because that actually, I kind of preferred it without the game's anti-aliasing, and also that was before this shadows not affecting the CPU cars problem came up. So maybe I should just go back to that. But oh, what? Now we're up to 18 minutes again. Come on, it didn't take that long before. This game is the game, or the emulator is doing everything weird on me now. I might just have to pause this recording and come back later if it's really going to take this long. Oh no, now we're zooming. Oh, progress meters, will you ever get good? Of course, you can't expect a PS3 game's progress meter to know what's up when it's running in an emulator, but I wish it would. I guess That's silly. This does all make me want to get a brand new rig, though, because I'm sure a lot of this stuff would load way faster in a new gaming laptop. Maybe when the next Virtua Fighter comes out, I don't know. When some new game comes out that I really cannot run like I want on this rig, then I'll get a new one. But it ain't like I'm overflowing with dough to get new computers all the time, so I just gotta be patient and get one when I actually really need a real game to go. Not that these aren't real games, but I suspect there'll always be some we'll be chunking along in RPCS3 for a while. Probably on any kind of machine, just because it's it's an emulator, it's in progress. So let's see the size of the files that we just reinstalled. Reduplicated. 5.4 gigabytes again. Okay, so the data is back. It's duplicated. Let's see if that makes any difference. Let's try. Let's do London, since we already saw what that looked like after running it a second time in a session. Let's see if it's now any smoother. It was already pretty smooth, so this might be hard to see a difference. But the real test will be running a different track that we haven't run yet, and see if that takes like a whole lap to get the caching out of the way, the compiling. I'm running with shaders set to the top detail level in RPCS3 Ultra or whatever the option, the maximum detail setting is. So that was real smooth. No compiling of shaders at all. So that was actually ridiculous. I didn't expect it to ever be that smooth. So I can't predict anything now, but anyway, so I think that install showed that it helped a bit there. But let's go see, well, now it's doing compiling. Let's go see a brand new track that hasn't had any chance to do shader compilation in RPCS3. Because before the hard drive install, we would have expected that to do some pretty chunky shader compiling for the first lap. We could do Madrid. Oh, let's do Tokyo. I like Tokyo. Tokyo R246. I don't know if that's like a real name of a route in Tokyo. I guess you would hope so. So we're already doing a little shader compiling. How bad is this going to get, though? Now, there's a little jerk there. A little jerk there. A little audio stutter, but no warping or hardcore juddering. We're doing compiling. Let's see how long that lasts. Oh, that was a CPU hitting me. Who's a bad driver now? Not me. I'm the best. Yeah, that was an amazing corner I just took, wasn't it? I know, I tried to go faster and I crashed. Well, this track is still compiling shaders. So it hasn't helped RPCS3's shader compiling hugely here. Doesn't seem like it's not jerky at the moment though, so that's good. So I guess there must have been some other thing that was making the data install actually really vital. And now that whatever the heck that thing was is seemingly not happening from whatever build that was last week. which may have all been due to that bug that was affecting anti-aliasing on Nvidia cards for a few builds. Now the data install isn't so critical, so you might not want to spend that 5 gigabytes. So I was doing some compiling for about the first 2/3 of this lap. Ah, there it goes again. That was just me being a bad driver, though. Well, again, rather unimpressive results of my supposed solution/workaround. So, yeah, I guess I can't really recommend doing the install to drive thing right now. I mean, it did help last week with RPCS3, but RPCS3 has updated since then, and now whatever issue that was, perhaps related to that anti-aliasing bug that was in the emulator temporarily, is no longer a big problem. So hey, well, here's the helmet background scene. Is this going to give me the squares? It's not. So possibly that's because, oh, there's a little bit. Alright, well, yeah, nothing is working like I was hoping. Oh, this is just a trash heap of attempted... Look at me, I fixed some stuff. Alright, so the third issue is anti-aliasing. So in fact, let's go back to Tokyo. And we'll take a look at the game's anti-aliasing. Now, you'll notice if you're watching here that as the cars are driving up, there's no anti-aliasing. Right here, there's no anti-aliasing in this scene. It's very jaggy. You can see the pixel crawl on the edges of the cars. But now that we're actually in the race, if you take a look in the distance, you will see that stuff gets a little blurry. It's actually not. Man, I swear, sometimes this gets real unpredictable. Although notice, so there's that bug where that car is supposed to be in shadow. This whole part of the street is in shadow, and it's not in shadow. So that's a separate issue that is just something that is going to have to get solved with a reversion of some bogus code. Let's see if we can find a spot where the anti-aliasing is easier to see. I swear, sometimes the game, though, is just not doing it. I'm not seeing a whole lot of anti-aliasing here right now. Gosh, jeepers. Nothing is working right. It's like the game is just, it's just doing all the stuff I want it to do, instead of showing the bugs that I was running into like last week and yesterday. Let me try another track where the AA was pretty gross yesterday. And that was the kart track. And if this doesn't have AA, actually, there's no AA on at all, because even that model was an AA. So AA is dead right now. I'm gonna have to restart the game, I suspect. Oh wait, there's some AA. Well, that's weird. So now the moving into the race screen has the AA, but the race Yeah, okay, I think we've got some AA going on here, some anti-aliasing. Yes, if you look at those, the furthest cart there, the edges are kind of blurry. You're not seeing jagged edges on it. It's all a bit blurry. So that's Gran Turismo 5's anti-aliasing. It's pretty blurry and actually kind of gross looking. And I put in a bug entry on this, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But what KD11 said about the anti-aliasing is that this is just the game's anti-aliasing. It's not the emulator implementing anti-aliasing. So whatever anti-aliasing you see in the game is just how Gran Turismo 5 does anti-aliasing itself. So you can't... what I wanted to do, I was like, I don't like this anti-aliasing. I want to turn it off. Because when anti-aliasing was broken on Nvidia cards in builds of RPCS3 last week, everything looked nice and sharp. And I wanted to get back to that. So what I did was I went into RPCS3 settings. As soon as it covers, okay. And I went to the anti-aliasing setting and set it to disabled. But what I found is that that didn't do anything. When I ran the game again, when I got into a race, there was still anti-aliasing going on. It seemed to disable anti-aliasing on the main menu scenes, the background scenes, but like we just saw, sometimes it just doesn't do anti-aliasing anyway. The game just doesn't, running it through RPCS3. So maybe that's just however the game is feeling at the moment, and it's like it detects some hiccup in displaying a scene. It's like, oh, better not put AA on here because it's gonna be too slow. Or I don't know. Anyway, so as far as I can tell, and as far as KD11 said to me, and when I entered a bug entry on this, turning AA off is basically, it's just getting overridden by the game, and the game is just doing its own thing. But there is a setting called Force Hardware MSAA Resolve, and that is a confusing name. What the description says is forces MSAA to use the host's GPU resolve capabilities for all sampling operations. I don't know what a host GPU's resolve capability is. It sounds like something about my Nvidia card. Like, is it going to use the Nvidia cards? Anti-aliasing settings. This option incurs a performance penalty as well as a risk of visual artifacts, but can yield crisper visuals when MSAA is enabled. That's what the description said down there. So I worried about that too, because it said incurs a performance penalty. That didn't sound great. But I tried it, and also I tried changing, in NVIDIA's control panel, you can change you can force anti-aliasing settings to override games and stuff. So I tried that as well, and you can set it on a per program basis. I tried that. That didn't make a difference when I had enabled this, and KD11 made it sound more like, see, and here's a screenshot I took yesterday of the blurry anti-aliasing in the Tokyo track I was getting there. So that was not happening on that run we just did. So I don't know, go figure. But what KD11 said was, this is just post-process AA. We cannot turn it off since this is a software feature in the game itself. So at least in GT5's case, the anti-aliasing you see is a software feature that's the game's doing. He did say disabling MSAA in the settings block after I had mentioned that when I check this box and run the game, anti-aliasing is off as long as I have this anti-aliasing setting here to auto. If I set this to disabled, then it ignores this and the anti-aliasing actually still happens in the game. So if I want to disable anti-aliasing in the game, I set this anti-aliasing under GPU to auto, and then under advanced, check this box for force hardware MSAA resolve. And so KD11 did make it sound like that's actually what a valid way to disable the anti-aliasing. Disabling MSAA in the settings blocks the hardware feature globally. There are no heuristics or trickery involved unless you somehow force it on in your driver's control panel. Which I actually did try, but that didn't seem to do anything for me. But that's okay. All I wanted to do was disable it. So I guess I'm going to do that. And I haven't noticed a performance penalty with it. I mean, he makes it sound like it just blocks anti-aliasing from happening. So you wouldn't think that would make for a bad display penalty, right? So I don't know. I haven't noticed one. I haven't run with it a whole lot yet. So anyway, that's there. So let's run the game and see like what that cart track at least looks like without aliasing, since I couldn't get it to happen just now in any other track. Thanks, game and emulator, for making me look silly again. I mean, I am silly, but usually at least programs I run are a little more consistent from day to day. Arg. Man, trying to test and reproduce bugs and document bugs in games for RPCS3 is it's a real challenge. I mean, I've done professional game testing and for PC games, and that was generally less hair pulling than this RPCS3 bug hunting. Let me tell you. Okay. So anyway, this is my third strike. We'll see. We'll see if we get any action. It should have no anti-aliasing now in the game. Now that we've checked that force MSAA resolve. I can't even say the name of the option, but let's go give it a shot. Cart space 1/night. So not seeing any AA there, but it wasn't doing it before there either. It was doing it though in the starting scene, which is coming up here. It's still doing trickle install? What the heck? That looks like it's anti-aliased. Well, nothing has worked. I'm just gonna have to not publish this video. Wait. I think it's not aliasing here. That background looks fairly sharp. I should have taken a screenshot last time, but could do this now. Let's load this screenshot up in Photoshop and zoom in. That's it. It's a little hard to tell if that's anti-aliasing or just rendering, but it's not super soupy anti-aliasing like I was seeing yesterday anyway. I mean, like that line, that white line along the side of the track, that's not anti-aliased. It's just distressingly hard to tell, though. I mean, like, the steering wheel is definitely not anti-aliased right now. Look how jagged that is. My driver's helmet is not anti... Yeah, so I don't think there's anti-aliasing going on now. So I think this one thing has actually worked. So if you check that under the advanced options in RPCS3, if you check that disable MSSA or MSAA, hardware resolve, whatever the heck that is, that will disable anti-aliasing entirely, which I think for GT5 is actually the way I want to go, because sometimes, well, for one thing, whether or not it decides to do anti-aliasing seems to be a little unpredictable, and for another, when it does do its full-on anti-aliasing, it's just really just blurry and gross looking. I wonder if I somehow, I'm just going to take this quick way out, check something under my Nvidia control panel. I don't think I left any kind of override on. No. Oh, that is still there. Oh. I didn't mean to keep that there. Let's get rid of that then. Okay. Well, that was interesting. So maybe the override was doing something. Let's, I don't know, apply. That's probably just doing the flycast one. Anyway, let's see. Let's totally relaunch emulator. See if that makes it any clearer on the old anti-aliasing or not thing. Maybe that's also why, maybe that was just overriding even without the advanced option being set. Maybe that's what was screwing me up. So I guess that means either way you can override RPCS3's anti-aliasing with like Nvidia control panel settings. I was having some trouble with the control panel yesterday, and I had to Google for a while. It was saying that I didn't have permission or something to alter settings, any of those anti-aliasing settings or any settings in the Nvidia control panel. I looked that up, and it's just something that happens occasionally with the drivers apparently, and you have to like go clear out some Nvidia folder of junk and restart your computer, and then it's okay, and that's what I did. So that was fun. Okay. So if that was actually doing it, now that I've turned that Nvidia control panel override off, maybe we'll see something that looks a little different. This might be even more jaggedy. Okay, there was definitely anti-aliasing here before in these immediately pre-race views. And now there's still no, maybe there isn't now. Or maybe I'm just imagining, because like the helmet there looked anti-aliased. Alright. That was me just rear-ending a jerk. Well, yeah. So now there's like, let's take a screenshot and see. Yeah. It would have helped if I'd taken that on the same corner. It might be a little sharper now. So maybe it was doing my like forced 4x FXAA through the Nvidia override there. There's still some like anti-aliasing effect going on there though, I swear. Well, that might be a minor difference anyway. I mean, what's the difference between the game's MSAA, whenever it feels like doing it, and forced override Nvidia 4x FXAA? Who knows? Let's try now taking off the advanced option in RPCS3, which in theory, now that we've cleared out the override in Nvidia control panel that I didn't realize I'd left on. So that was an accidental fun additional test I hadn't planned on. So turn this off. So turning this off just to see, double check. So not forcing AA off, as KD11 seems to say that setting is what that does. Disables, blocks the hardware feature globally. So anti-aliasing is still on auto. So in theory, what we'll get now should be the game's actual anti-aliasing. And if it's like it was yesterday before I went through some contortions with my Nvidia control panel, it should be kind of soupy looking and, you know, blurry and gross. But maybe since I changed some options, it's got to do a little extra caching, or I'm just impatient. Well, this will be my fourth strike if this doesn't actually show this blorpy game anti-aliasing that I've been telling you that I saw. I swear I saw it. But I guess I was wrong, potentially, about not being able to override the AA with my Nvidia control panel settings, so that's kind of good to know. That they did appear to override it, but let's see. Here comes the big test. Am I a complete idiot today, or just, you know, usual, mostly idiot? How big of an idiot am I today? We're about to find out. Am I just a super mega idiot, or just the usual major idiot? Okay. This should be the game's own AA, unencumbered by RPCS3 or Nvidia control panel overrides. Show us your stuff. GT5. Ooh, that's looking like some thick and soupy AA on that view. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this is it. This is the soup. We're in the soup now, people. Also getting some major stuttering there. Let's get a car right in there. Let's get that red one. Okay. Take a look at that one. Pretty sure it's blurrier. Okay, crop this. So this is this latest one. These other two are the earlier ones where I was probably overriding it with my Force control panel settings. So yeah, like look at that. Yeah, it's comparable there, but I would say this car is a lot less distinct. Maybe it's just the different colors, but it's also possible the game is, or the emulator has cached. Wait, would that even be a thing? Can an emulator cache the compile shaders with an anti-aliasing setting compiled in them? That sounds like BS, but there's much, to me, much more apparent well, I don't know. Is it wishful thinking? Who knows? There's definitely some weird line going on top of my steering wheel. Let's try one of those tracks earlier. There's never any AA in those scenes, in the replay scene. I think those also run at 30 FPS, which is an interesting combination. Oh wait, I did want single race. I can't do anything right. This is another train wreck of a GT5 session. Let's go try Tokyo again. That's definitely anti-aliased. Okay, this scene is never anti-aliased. But once we get into the actual race... Yes. I think. Yeah, you see that weird pixel crawl along the roof of the car? That's not no aliasing, or no anti-aliasing. Yeah, you see the way the cars are kind of blurred out in the distance. Whoops, I quit. Well, that was my one shot at proving myself. It won't be visible here. Anyway, well, I guess okay, so now that I'm not forcing, okay, so we can contrast that, although I didn't show it very well. We can contrast that with one more run of the game, and I'm going to put it back on my own preferred setting, I think, which would be advanced force hardware MSAA resolve. So this is going to use my hardware's, my Nvidia card setting, which now that I've turned that Nvidia control panel override off should be nothing. So now there should be, now that I've turned that back on and I've turned the MSAA off, didn't I already do this though? Yeah, I did do this. I'm going to try one more time. Because I've been driven crazy by this now, and nothing worked. Like, nothing worked as clearly as it worked or didn't work yesterday. I'm so confused. RPCS3, why do you do this to me? I swear, whenever I run into some weird thing like this, I spend a whole day like bashing my head against it, and it always turns out to be something other than what I thought. But sometimes, despite myself, it is an actual bug that actually gets fixed, like that busted Nvidia anti-aliasing thing that I reported last week to get fixed. That was nice. And I guess I found out from this that Nvidia control panel settings do override the emulator. Sometimes or all the time, I'm not quite sure on that. I think GT5's own anti-aliasing is just like it's variable. It depends on how it's performing. It'll kick in more or less AA. So it's a little hard to reproduce because running in an emulator especially, it's a little less of a predictable environment. See, that is aliased. I don't get it. Maybe I would have to clear out the shaders if I wanted that not to be aliased. Oh my gosh, this is aliased. Everything is working wrong. Well, maybe that's just transparency around the edge. I'm looking at the line around the edge of my windshield. Maybe that's some kind of semi-transparency effect there. Because actually the cars in the distance don't look aliased at all. Yeah. So see how sparkly that is? Down there at the end of the street? That is no aliasing. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's not soupy and blurry like it was yesterday. So I'm going to count this as a something of a win. I don't know. Anyway, if you're having trouble with the game's anti-aliasing looking blurry, then you would want blurrier than you would want. And you want to drive like an idiot like me. You can try enabling that force MSAA hardware resolve or whatever the heck it's called. It doesn't make verbal sense to me. But what KD11 said is that it will disable the feature, or block it is what he said. It'll block the game from using its own aliasing, I get, or anti-aliasing, which is what I wanted, because the game's anti-aliasing, when it is going, is gross. I couldn't get it to do it today. I'm not sure why. Not clearly, anyway. But as long as it never shows up, I'll be okay. Feel okay about that. I'm paranoid now, though, like the line of that roof in the distance is, oh, maybe not. No, it's pretty jagged. Okay, good. Just give me some rough pixels. That's what I seem to want. Alright, well, this has been another train wreck of an attempted look at semi-technical stuff, rendering stuff in Gran Turismo 5 running in RPCS3. I don't know what I'm talking about. None of it seems to... I can't seem to reproduce stuff correctly when I try to record it. So yeah, that's my excuse. Well, thanks for watching this bad video. Yeah, so in summary, what was the first thing? Oh, so those white sparkles in some background scenes at 1080p, you just have to run with strict rendering on strict rendering mode if you don't want those to show up. It is pretty minor though, so probably not worth the performance penalty you do seem to get with that option being on. Sometimes I could swear yesterday when I did a run through with strict rendering mode on and then turned it off, the problem no longer occurred even when I turned it back off. But I don't know, if that's a caching thing, it is going to be a little fluky and could just get cleared out whenever the cache decides it needs to refresh itself. So that's not, you know, it's not a perfect workaround anyway, even if it was working like I thought it was working. The second thing, which was doing the hard drive data install would improve, would get rid of really bad loading and stuttering and warping at the start of a race, especially the first time you ran a course. I couldn't reproduce that really, so maybe that's 5 gigabytes that doesn't do anything extra for you, and you could get away with not actually doing that data install. It has seemed to help me before though in previous builds of the emulator, so I don't know. I'm just gonna leave mine installed. I mean, if you don't come in and do this check this box, it'll eventually, in theory, install that data anyway. Although even after I checked that box, I noticed it still was seeming to add more to that installed size, so I don't know. I don't know if there's really a way to stop it anyway. And then the third thing is, with the anti-aliasing, you can more or less disable the game's soupiest anti-aliasing, perhaps by overriding it with something like the Nvidia control panel, but maybe more definitely once you've checked that box under the RPCS3's advanced options for the whatever the heck it is, Force Hardware MSAA resolve, and it does say it incurs a performance penalty. I have not felt one so far, so that's good. So I'm just going to keep rolling with that, and hopefully that'll prevent the gross extreme game blurry anti-aliasing from showing back up. If you want to see that in action, you can check out the previous video in this playlist, which I have linked in the description below the video. And I couldn't get it to not do super blurry anti-aliasing on everything yesterday, seemingly. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, you can go check that out. It's all really gross looking. And that was before I found this Force Hardware MSAA resolve setting. And I tried turning this off. Maybe that's what made it worse. I could try that. Let's see what happens there. Oh, whoops, right. All right. Last run. Oh joy. Oh, it's not going to go yet. It's catching up. Doesn't like quitting Gran Turismo. Let's make sure the setting's here. It's on disabled. So now it'll, in theory, ignore that anyway. I should have turned that off, though. Well, maybe I'll have to run it again and check all the combinations. I was kind of hoping to get in another session of some other game here after I did this, but this, as always, RPCS3 just takes up a whole lot of time. I mean, it doesn't help that it takes like at least a minute to launch the game. How long does it take your computer to run GT5 and RPCS3? Technically, this is Gran Turismo 5 XL edition. That's the version I ripped. That was just a later release that came with updates through 2.01 already installed. Or, well, they're in a sort of a combo patch that you're forced to install when you first run the game. Basically, it won't run correctly without them, even in RPCS3. And then it also came with a voucher or a digital code for a lot of the DLC that was out for the game at that time. That voucher expired after like a year, so even if nobody ever used my code, it almost certainly would no longer work. Give me some soup. Not sure. There's some, maybe some aliasing or anti-aliasing there. That's always anti-aliased. Maybe that's like a static image. Oh, yeah, that would explain. That's not a static image. Yeah, I guess that first one's a static shot. Brainiac me never even noticed that. So this is never anti-aliased, this scene. But now, oh yeah, okay, that's it. So it's when you disable RPCS3's anti-aliasing setting. Oh. I see. So it's when you disable RPCS3. See, I didn't understand this, and there was a lot of contradictory language that wasn't making sense to me, and now it's slightly clearer. So when you disable RPCS3's anti-aliasing setting, you get this gross behavior. When you turn it on, so this is Gran Turismo's software. Well, it was also using PS3 hardware. This is Gran Turismo's anti-aliasing, which is really gross looking. So if you turn on the auto setting for anti-aliasing in RPCS3, then RPCS3 is doing its own anti-aliasing scheme, which is a lot cleaner. So yeah, this is the gross anti-aliasing. So what I would say for sure then is you do not want to set GT5's settings in RPCS3 to anti-aliasing disabled, because this is what you'll get. So don't do that. But if you do set it, on the other hand, to, I mean, auto's the default setting, so there's probably no sane person who would have set it to disabled. I guess what was happening last week was that it was still on auto, but the auto was kind of broken. Okay, so Force Hardware MSAA resolve wouldn't be doing anything when that was on disabled, but now that's on auto. I don't think I need this anymore exactly. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, so I was misinterpreting his response. So when he's saying disabling MSAA in the settings, he means this setting. So he said when that is disabled, it disables the hardware anti-aliasing. So it's no longer doing hardware anti-aliasing at that point. Um, it's doing the game's post-process AA. Okay, see, I didn't understand what he was saying there. I often have trouble understanding what people say about RPCS3 in GitHub. So, okay, so yeah. So you don't want to do that. But what you can do is change RPCS3's MSAA to use the host resolve capabilities. So if I run it without that, then what we're running is RPCS3's, I meant this to be a short video, is RPCS3's own MSAA. And I think I'm kind of okay with how that looks. So how the heck did I stumble across having that setting disabled? I don't know. I don't remember what got me off on that setting yesterday, or the day before. Why would I have set it to disabled in the first place? I'm not sure. Unless I thought I just had to do that initially to get it to not show any anti-aliasing, but I hadn't. I must have retested at some point to see how it looked fixed. I don't know. I can't retrace my confused thrashing around at various settings. It's just how I do stuff. I just try everything and then kind of forget what I already tried. Anyway, here we are with RPCS3's anti-aliasing, not the games. So this is RPCS3 MSAA. This is a static image. I finally realized this is not. So that is actually definitely anti-aliasing that. What's interesting though is that here it's not very anti-aliased at all. Here it's a little anti-aliased in the distance. Still pretty jaggy up close. And there is some weird stuff going on around the edges of my view, like on the windshield wiper. It's just kind of strange looking. That could be just a result of having minimal anti-aliasing at work. It's kind of curious that, like, there's no, like, detailed anti-aliasing settings. Like, you can't set, like, 2x or 4x or something. Like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how MSAA is usually set up and stuff, but wouldn't you have some kind of, like, ability to set a strength level or how much you wanted it to be, you know, smoothing stuff? Because there's like no smoothing on stuff that's close up like other cars close up here. But I don't want it as blurry as GT5s. So I guess if you check Like I could try doing like ×8 force override in Nvidia control panel. I don't know, let's try that. And I think maybe the that advanced MSAA whatever thing isn't actually doing anything particularly. But we'll see. So I'm going to crank up AA as much as I can here. That's one, yeah. So override 2x. Let's do 8x. Go nuts. I mean, it's only FXAA. Like, I'm kind of surprised I don't have some other option, but. So I am running in Vulkan, RPCS3, but here's MFAA. Well, we'll see if this makes any difference. Okay, looks like it's done. So here goes. Now, if that doesn't seem to make a difference here, I can try checking that advanced box about the MSAA hardware, whatever. I mean, does that force hardware MSAA resolve? Use the host GPU's resolve capabilities. So KD11 didn't actually talk about that setting. Maybe that setting just equates to what would happen if you had a sort of not so forced override setting, like something one step down from force override or something. Or maybe not. The language seems unnecessarily vague to me, but I'm an idiot. That is very anti-aliased. That looks a little more anti-aliased. Was I imagining it? This looks more anti-alias, like the crawl is much more complicated looking on my windshield wiper and stuff, so I think that is overriding it anyway, without having that checkbox checked. That advanced checkbox checked. So what if I set, well, first of all, let's try, hey, let's try this. And then I thought of one more thing to try, which is what if I set my override NVIDIA control panel settings to no anti-aliasing? Like, I think that's an option. Oh man, the startup sequence. I wish it could just start instantly, you know. That would speed all this experimentation up a whole lot, and it wouldn't take all day. Then what would I do with all my time? I'd just record other games, and why do that? Silly. Okay. Going back to Tokyo. It's just easier to see aliasing in Tokyo because of how sunny it is and all the like kind of vertical background stuff, trees and buildings, stuff at big diagonals. So this is with that Force MSAA hardware resolve. I'm not sure it's going to look any different. Might look a little better. Like I'm looking at the top of the windshield wiper and it's a little less confused looking. I think this actually does look a little better. So this is overriding RPCS3's anti-aliasing and the game's anti-aliasing with instead Nvidia control panel or Nvidia's own anti-aliasing setting, which in this case is just FXAA times 8. But it does look a bit better than RPCS3's MSAA in this game. It's still not, it doesn't look like the rendering on the cars is 1080p exactly. It looks less than that. Like the game is kind of rendering the cars actually slightly less than 1080p resolution in a way. I swear those tires at the end of that turn come out looking different though. Oops. Oh wow. Took that barrier down. Well, so this is a decent option. Like, this actually looks fairly okay in terms of being a balance between, not even a balance, it just kind of looks better. It's not as weird and a bit random looking as RPCS3's anti-aliasing. I'm still not getting kind of what I was hoping for, which was like completely busted AA. I guess I could revert to that previous busted build and we could take a look at what that looks like. I mean, I'm already all in. I might as well do that. I keep thinking about that build. But one more thing on this build. We'll do, we'll just turn anti-aliasing off. Overriding any application setting. And see if it's off, but it's also doing this, like what? Oh, I see. FXAA is just different. This can be used in conjunction with other anti-aliasing settings to improve image quality, shader-based processing. So I can't actually turn it off. Oh, no, I can't. Anti-aliasing mode off. Let's just do that. Okay. Okay. So that's all off. So now in theory, I am overriding both GT5 software's anti-aliasing and RPCS3's MSAA anti-aliasing with my own custom settings in the Nvidia control panel here, which have anti-aliasing set completely off. And that override is because I've checked that force MSAA resolve, hardware resolve setting in the RPCS3 advanced configuration settings. So it's just going to show me what the game looks like with absolutely no anti-aliasing. And will it look like that build from last week where anti-aliasing was totally broken on my Nvidia card? That was a bug in RPCS3 that did get fixed. RPCS3, and I was thinking if I wanted that look, I might just have to revert to that build of RPCS3 and just tell it never to update itself. That build, of course, part of the way that broken anti-aliasing for my Nvidia card manifested was there was big, gross, black, weird polygonal shapes in the covering the backgrounds of the main menu and the pre-race screen, so that part isn't great. And if you wanted any kind of anti-aliasing, that's obviously not the build for you. Oh, stuff does look really... Is it my imagination, or does like the text here look more crisp? Like maybe that was getting blurred by the FXAA. I kind of like how crisp that is, but maybe I'm just imagining that it's different now. So does this look different? There's definitely not a whole lot of anti-aliasing going on. I think this looks different. I think. It's like somehow for me, having this game without anti-aliasing makes it kind of fits the aesthetic better. I don't know why I think that way. Like obviously the game's own anti-aliasing is super thick and heavy, but I just kind of I like the pixelated look for this game. And like even with the maximum forced override ×8 FXAA setting that I could do through the Nvidia control panel, there was still a lot of jaggies on like cars that were close up to me. So it's not like it really looked consistently, you know, like smoothed out non-jaggy with even the highest AA setting. For whatever reason. So maybe, in my mind, that means I might as well just turn it off and just not have it sort of applying uneven levels of smoothing on stuff, you know? Just give me the full, look at those crazy rendering grids on the tree branches. That's speed trees, but whatever it is, I just kind of like those patterns. I kind of like the crazy pixel look. It kind of makes us feel, I think I said this in the previous session, like somehow it makes us feel kind of like a super PS1 game to me. And I mean, PS1s were Gran Turismo started, right? Not that I've really played the PS1 Gran Turismos much at all, because that was before my time with PlayStation. Like I got a PlayStation 2 sort of late on in the PS2's life, and then I went back and got PS2 stuff and PS1 stuff, but I never went back and got the PS1 Gran Turismo games. So yeah, I think I'll leave it like this. So I've set the advanced RPCS3 configuration option, the Force MSAA hardware resolve or whatever, and that tells it to use my Nvidia control panel settings for anti-aliasing. And then, at least as far as I could tell. And then I've set those settings in Nvidia control panel for this install of RPCS3. I've set those to be completely off. So it's overriding the game anti-aliasing and RPCS3's built-in MSAA and anti-aliasing with Nvidia's setting, which is set to no anti-aliasing. And the reason you don't want to just turn off anti-aliasing in RPCS3's anti-aliasing setting is because that will then use the game's anti-aliasing routine, which is super blurry and gross. So don't do that, whatever you do. Oh yeah, look how clean and clear everything looks here. So clear I can't see the track because I'm looking at patterns of dots. Oh man, the pixels. The pixels, children. Oh my gosh. Oh, can I restart the race? I can't handle it. It's so many pixels in my face now, so sharp. It's blowing my mind. But see, like that is, I could swear that is still alias, so there's some kind of software routine, or anti-alias, there's some kind of software routine going on there, I think. Some kind of game thing that isn't getting overridden. But like this is super crisp. Also the game text itself is more crisp than it was, but maybe that was when I was overriding it with FXAA settings that were blurring the full screen. Oh, I'm getting rolled. No. What am I doing? Can't handle this. I can't handle the sharp pixels. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get at least top half of the finish. Top 8, come on. This is on easy for Pete's sake. It is the highest powered go-karts, but, you know, it just means I'm a big kid. Or want to be a big kid. Oh, poor. Okay, that wasn't horrible. Ah, you punk. Get out of my way. You got cut off. That was a sharper turn than I thought it was. I suck at go-karts. Oh, he hit me. I mean, it's even more extreme on this track because there's these like flashing aqua colored square lights on the certain parts of the track that just look like giant flashing pixels. Fourth. So anyway, yeah, I guess I learned a little something there. The text is a lot sharper now. I could swear it is anyway. Well, I guess this video isn't a complete wash. Okay, so let me try to summarize now. I think I'm finally done. First issue of those flickering white squares in the background, you can fix that, quote unquote fix, with strict rendering mode that will incur various performance degradation issues. I mean, the emulator just won't run as well. It can't cut corners once you're in that mode, but it won't get those flickering squares at 1080p in GT5. So if those are bothering you that much, you can do that. I wouldn't advise it. I would just take those. Sometimes those do seem to get cached out. You can try doing a run through with strict rendering mode on and load up all the scenes and then switch it back off for the next time you run the game, and maybe they won't show up again, but they did on me here today, so I don't know. I could swear that did it yesterday, but not today. The second rendering fun time was, what was it? What's the other thing? Not anti-aliasing. It's the hitching and loading and jerking when running on a new track if you haven't done the HDD data install option in the game. That doesn't seem to be nearly as big a factor as it was in like this kind of janky build I first was running for GT5 last week of the emulator. It might help a little, but I can't say I can really notice a measurable difference doing that install in the current build of RPCS3. And you wouldn't have thought it would make any difference, right? Because it's all running off your hard drive. It's just duplicating files and taking up more space. So it takes up 5 gigabytes or so extra space. But the game will do a little trickle install of that data over time anyway. So maybe you're getting that out of the way. Like the game occasionally showing that little installing icon in the right-hand side of the screen when it thinks nothing else is going on. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that installed, whatever. And then third thing is this question of which anti-aliasing scheme do you want to roll with. So if you set RPCS3's GPU anti-aliasing configuration setting to disabled, it uses the game's implementation of anti-aliasing, which is super gross and blurry and soupy. I would not advise doing that. If you leave RPCS3's GPU anti-aliasing setting on auto without doing any anti-aliasing related advanced option or anything, then, and without doing overrides in something like Nvidia control panel anyway, then it will do RPCS3's MSAA anti-aliasing, which is okay looking, but it's not actually really great in this game. It's kind of it's a little randomish if you're looking at the patterns of pixels. They're kind of a little all over the place. It's not the best. But it's not terrible. It's certainly better than the game's anti-aliasing, which is what you get if you set the anti-aliasing setting in RPCS3 to disabled. If you leave that anti-aliasing setting on auto and you check the force MSAA hardware resolve or something like that option in the advanced configuration panel, then I think is when you get the full-on effect of the override settings that you make in something like the Nvidia control panel if you're running an Nvidia card. And then you can really control what you're getting. And so I can set FXAA on, and I can set the anti-aliasing to ×8. That's kind of maximum. It lets my card crank that up. And that comes out a bit better looking than RPCS3's MSAA. But it's still not super great. I'm kind of surprised that it's not a little better looking. Like, cars close up to you don't really look anti-aliased at all. There's a little anti-aliasing going on in the distance, and like stuff that's close up, like in the cockpit view, looks slightly better than the game's anti-aliasing, but it's not amazing anti-aliasing by any means. Maybe it depends on what your card is, I suppose. Like newer cards probably have super fancy stuff they can do, but on my 5 to 6 year old Nvidia mid-range gaming laptop card, it's not spectacular. So I find on this hardware of mine anyway, that just leaving that Force MSAA hardware resolve box checked. Oh, there's a little of the square sparkling effect in this background. I just saw a tiny bit of it there. Yeah, so I've got that MSAA hardware resolve checked. I've got anti-aliasing setting under GPU set to auto. And then in Nvidia control panel, I have the anti-aliasing settings overridden for this emulator EXE, and I've set those to no anti-aliasing. And so now the game is just consistently not anti-aliased, and it seems to have even made the text on the screens, like that text at the bottom, the crawl text here, sharper, which was maybe just getting blurred by the FXAA or the like 2x or 4x or 8x override I was doing right before that, possibly. But anyway, I like this setting, so I'm going to leave it like that. RPCS3's explanation text for that Force MXAA hardware resolve setting does say it'll incur a performance penalty, but I can't say I'm really seeing one or feeling one. So if there is one, it doesn't seem to be that bad. And maybe since I'm turning AA off, it's not really, it wouldn't do penalty performance anyway, since it's just saying, hey, don't do any I don't know. I can't tell. But yeah, I haven't done extensive performance testing because I don't know how to do that, and I don't have the patience to do it, and I don't care enough. If the game runs okay, and it looks better to me this way, but I'm just a weirdo, and I kind of like this sort of super PS1 aliased look. So anyway, that's what I got. Thanks for watching. I thought this was going to be a lot more cut and dried. And this stuff was just going to work like I imagined it would be in my head, and just about nothing did work out that way. But I learned a few things, so I feel slightly less idiotic than I did previously, but still pretty idiotic. So that's good. Well, thanks for watching. If you watched all the way through that, I'm a little worried about you, but I appreciate you quite a bit. So, that's it. This is finally over. See you later. How do I get out of this? I click this button. Bye-bye.